Welcome to This Ain't Normal. I'm your host, Karee Neptune, here with my co-hosts, also my cousin Chaz Moore. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Karee, how you doing?
Yeah, good, man.
And the
I'm
fires?
I was gonna say I'm not going to burn,
Yeah.
so that's good. I mean, it was kind of scary a few days ago. But I think the firefighters, uh, for the most part, have got the fires, I wouldn't say under control. I mean, obviously you know how it works better than I do, but contained a little bit at least.
Contains a
Um,
good word. Yep,
yeah, I think
that's a
that's
good
the word.
word. That, not under control, but contained or stopping progression, right? Like typically,
Yeah,
and mine is more urban firefighting, but typically like you say, hey, this is the line. No fire, like this is where we're gonna make our stand. We're gonna make our stand here. No fires getting past here. Doesn't mean you have the whole thing under control or have it out, but
yeah,
you're saying this is where we're making our stand. Doesn't always work, but as it's not called a fire win, it's called a fire fight. So you don't
sure.
necessarily gonna win, right? Like you don't no fighter has won, all fights, so it's not a fire win, it's a fire fight. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I think they took some
containment's
L's
good.
early in this. I mean, because I think it was so windy. It was the windiest I've ever felt in Los Angeles. So that was, I mean, fire must have spread really, really fast.
Well,
Uh,
it's so interesting. Every time I'm there, I think it always rains. Like I remember the last time I'm there. I mean, it was. I don't know if you remember, but we were leaving a bar, and it was buckets. Like it
yeah,
was like total downpour rain. It's just like every time I'm there, it rains, and you're like, yeah, it never rains here. And I'm like, it's always raining here.
yeah. No, this is the driest winter in like 50 years. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it's rained maybe sprinkled once. So yeah, that's combination of factors has led to this disaster.
perfect storm.
Perfect storm, as they say.
Yeah,
Um, well, another thing going on in Washington, D.C. today was Pete Hegseth, of Fox News fame. He had his confirmation for defense secretary.
yeah.
Uh, didn't watch the whole thing, watched some of the highlights, and I don't know. I think I kind of go back and forth on this. Just want to get your view on it. Because yes, he's unqualified, but does any of this really matter? I mean, I feel like we kind of already accepted this the freak show, the circus. Like, how important is this? I mean, we could talk about some of the details, but does this matter in the big picture?
Well, I mean, obviously his position matters, right?
Sure.
The Secretary of Defense, so that position matters. And then there's kind of several questions because the other question is, well, does the confirmation hearing does that matter? And we can kind of put a little pin in that. But you mentioned like qualifications, and I think everyone when they think Secretary of Defense, they think of some uh, hardened general that has wartime experience. But they think of a general. They don't think of like uh, captains
No.
or maybe even they might even think of admirals maybe. But they're definitely not thinking of like um, lower ranks. Commanders, lieutenant commanders, captains, majors, things which that's kind of a lower rank anyway. But anyway. So I don't believe he's qualified just because I think all other Secretary of Defenses have been very high ranking military officials, and he's not a high ranking military official. So on that end, I would say no, he's not qualified. But I don't, being honest, I don't know all the qualifications needed to be Secretary of Defense. I would say the one qualification I would think is um, command staff level in the United States military. I mean, if you were like a combat jet fighter, that's great. I think you should probably go into like NASA afterwards, but I wouldn't think that you should be the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
So I would say no. Being a news anchor, I mean, he wasn't qualified to be the president of Fox News. And and the Department of Defense is a way bigger budget than that. So I wouldn't think that he's qualified to be the head of the United States Armed Forces. If he's not qualified to be the head of Fox News.
I mean, it's the biggest bureaucracy in the world. Literally, the Department
Yeah,
of Defense. I mean, it's 3 billion people.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like he got plucked out of just because some people are, I guess a lot of MAGA knows him on Fox. But yeah, I mean, most times the senators, they used to be a senator or like general stuff like that. But I guess at the end of the day, I mean, maybe he's too big to fail. I mean, is the bureaucracy too big? I mean, what's your opinion on like executive level experience? I mean, I guess I like to think the Pentagon operates like not quite like a well-oiled machine, but like pretty well. So
I
yeah.
think that, and not taking away from anyone that was Secretary of Defense, but I think the military grooms their high level command staff to fill in for Secretary of Defense at any given time. I don't
Mhm.
think he was groomed for that. And so I know the last Secretary of Defense, and I don't know his name, but is a general, 4-star general, which is a high ranking general. I'm sure that he was groomed and has the proper experience and training, which kind of goes into like this whole DEI thing. But this dude was a 4-star general.
Yeah.
This person was literally trained to not just command troops, because generals don't really command troops. That's lower level, like what Hegseth did as a captain. A captain commands individual troops, but looking at the overall big picture of like a it was a military campaign, a theater, right? Like
Sure.
the European theater, and just the overall thing of the military, the overall strategy of the military. But 3 million uh, employees, right? And then I don't know what their budget is, but it's what, like 20% of our GDP, so
Yeah.
it's massive. But I don't think a news anchor. No, I know a news anchor can't be qualified for that job. A news anchor and someone that was a captain, and no disrespect to him, because like there's a captain that I work with, and he's on our truck, and he was a captain in the army, and I'm like, this guy's a goofball. Like he doesn't really. It just all that means is he went to college when he was, before he got into the military, so he was a captain. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it's like he really is a goof, and I like him, but he's a
Yeah.
goof.
I mean, I guess the argument is I don't think there's a captain, I mean, who's ever been qualified. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the people, I mean, Lloyd Austin, who's the Secretary of Defense now, he was a captain at some point, but I don't know if he was qualified when he was captain or when he was
Right.
doing
When
other
he was
stuff.
at that rank, was he
Yeah.
qualified to do this? Not to be all super nerdy, but like the only captain qualified to run it, like, yeah, Jean-Luc Picard could run Starfleet. But stopping on that, like, no, your captain can't run the entire organization. That's not how it's done. It's just silly.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, he's not a career captain,
No.
right? He didn't spend his entire career into the military. Yes, he earned the right captain, not taking away from him, but it wasn't like, hey, I've been in the armed forces for 20 years. And I don't know how long his service was, but I'm assuming it was somewhere between 4 and 8 years. That'd be my guess, but I don't know. And then he went on to be a news anchor, and not even have his own show. He wasn't like
No.
he's not Bill O'Reilly there,
Yeah. I don't think Bill
with
O'Reilly's
Jesse
qualified
Waters.
either, though, but
One more time.
I don't think Bill O'Reilly's qualified
No,
either.
obviously not. And Bill O'Reilly would tell you that. And that's the
Yeah.
bad part about Pete Hegseth. He's not saying, hey, like I'm not really qualified for this job. And that's really the bad part. If you love this country and if you want to do what's right for this country, then you would say, uh, excuse me, convicted felon, I mean, President elect Trump, I'm not qualified to do the position you're asking me to do. Even if I have all these generals underneath me, I'm not qualified to do this job. America's defense is one of the, especially for neocons, Republicans. America's defense has always been one of the most important things. So to kind of say the hubris of someone to just do that and put American lives and America's well being on the line um, is really terrible.
I mean, there is a lot of hubris to that, because there's no way he could think he's qualified. It's impossible.
No, he can't.
Yeah, for
He
him to be
can't.
like, I'm qualified for this. So he's taking it for reasons that have to do with arrogance and, um, but I guess the thing that kind of grinds me too is, you know, MAGA, you could argue, led on DEI and pushing back on that and how diversity and is bringing all these underqualified people in these positions of power.
Yeah,
So
didn't earn it,
yeah,
right?
they didn't earn it. So I just it seems to me there's a lot of cognitive dissonance between that and really believing that and then being like, yeah, this guy should be the Secretary of Defense. Um, Not that MAGA thinks about stuff like that. I mean, do they care about the hypocrisy of it? Probably not. But it just annoys me that, they talk about how these all these unqualified people in these positions, and they're putting someone up who's plainly unqualified.
Yeah, but and you're right. But I guess the way they look at it is that one of the qualifications for any of these things is straight white male. That's like one of the qualifications,
Okay.
and it may be, and I don't know yet, but it might be the most important qualification.
It's
So
up there.
if you don't have that qualification, then you're just not qualified. It's literally a car without the steering wheel. It's not going. It doesn't work, right? So if you don't have that one part, that steering wheel, that
They don't drive.
it don't drive.
Yeah.
It don't drive. So I don't. DEI just means not a white guy. That's all it really means. You
But you
know.
you think they'd be slicker about it and try to hide it better? But I guess at this point, why would they even hide it?
Yeah.
Like,
Why would they? They run it. They
yeah,
run the table.
they run the table. You're right.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know how much you saw, but did you see Tim Kaine?
Yeah, he came at it pretty hard.
Yeah, I thought that was hard. And so kind of a follow-up question to that. Do you think that these personal character questions should that be on there for Department of Defense?
I've thought about that because I think there is an argument to be made that like if you're married, you took an
Hmm.
oath to
Hmm.
your wife.
He did that well. Kane did that well.
Yeah, so like if you can't uphold your oath to your wife, then how can anyone trust you to do anything else? That's like your most sacred oath.
Yeah.
I I think there's an argument to that. I think a lot of people would disagree. Like they would separate the professional from that. But I mean, if you could just cheat on your wife so blatantly like that, like, can you?
I,
I
I got a
mean,
friend that
yeah,
says hard dick doesn't have a conscience, right? And it's extremely vulgar, but it's like, yeah. And so I do get it. Like, hey, you could argue, well, they're totally different things, but
yeah,
I kind of would have to be with you because cheating is whatever. It's the fact of lying, right? That
yeah.
to me is really is when you're breaking an oath, you're lying. So we know he's not an honest person.
No,
Um, that's kind of the main thing. He's not an honest person, and um, when you have so many people, and these are people that are actually potentially will be in combat and are in combat. When you have people's lives on the lines, it's different. It's different. Like, and not taking anything away from any of the other secretaries, but like Department of Education, for example, doesn't really have people's lives on the line,
sure.
right? That's that you know, and this person does. So someone that you can't trust, someone's not trustworthy, someone that's own mother, like
Just kind of threw him under the bus. Yeah.
his mom wrote a letter like, "You're trash." His mom, like, "I'm embarrassed to be your mother." It's like, ooh,
That
you
was,
know.
yeah. I mean, she tried to take it back, but you can't take that back. It was, yeah.
No,
It's yeah.
no, you can't take that back.
No,
You
but
know,
yeah, but one thing for sure, we know for a fact, the American people does not care about
no,
like personal fidelity issues because obviously with Trump, they look way past that. It was baked in the cake. So that he's not going to fall because of that. I mean, it's a good line of
no, he won't.
question. It's a good line of questioning. Like people, I think it makes people think like, infidelity, how does that factor into it? But like, it's not gonna. He's not gonna fall because of that. Is you know,
No, because and the thing is, I trust Trump, and this is the right decision. But dang it, what's the other guy who was
Gates.
Gates?
Yeah,
I guess he just had too many enemies.
Yeah, that was more like he had political enemies in the Republican Party. And I like to think there's a statutory rape is a line. I mean, at this point, I don't know what the line is with the Republican Party. I really don't. But like, they at least framed it that that was a bridge too far that he was sleeping with 17-year-olds and paying for it. Like, so I think honestly though, is he just had a lot of enemies in the Republican Party that weren't going to vote for him more than the statutory part. I really do. But
And so just Hegseth does just not have enough enemies.
yeah, and he didn't sleep with a 17-year-old. I mean, he had some sexual misconduct and
Right, but nothing that they're turning their nose up at.
no. And
You know.
he had that smirk on his face. I mean, he did. I mean, I think he defended himself considering he's totally unqualified. I think he defended himself
Mhm.
basically as well as you could, especially to the MAGA crowd because he definitely went after like the left wing media and like smear campaign. I mean,
Yeah.
he played the game well
Yeah.
for the position he was in. Um,
Oh,
but yeah,
he's good at debate and confrontation.
yeah,
He's skilled with at that. You evading questions.
yeah. He
I think just kind of after watching a lot of what I watched, I was thinking, especially for Supreme Court hearings, but people should be put under oath
mm,
when they're talking to Congress or that's the Senate right there for that one. They should be put under oath because I think Barrett was asked like was what was it, Brown versus education, was that rightfully decided, and she declined to answer. I
right.
think they should be put under oath. Um,
But in the year of our Lord 2025, in the political world we're in, does that really even matter? I mean, are we going to convict them for perjury if it turns out they were lying about it?
no, I mean Kellyanne Conway said, um, let me basically something like along the lines of, "Let me know when you're going to try to convict me," because what it was, they wouldn't divest their Trump wouldn't divest his funding, whatever, and she's
Yeah.
like, "All right, well, let me know when you're going to arrest us."
Yeah, so I mean, at a certain point, we have all these guardrails, and they're just coming down one by one and putting up another one that says, "Oh, you're under oath." Like, hey, like,
Yeah. No, I
you
mean
know,
the Constitution didn't hold, but the thing is, it's not that the Constitution is a living document, so it's meant to change. It would work if people were doing what it said to do. Like it would be working, but
okay,
it's not because no people are ignoring it. So like if you're ignoring the Constitution, the media is ignoring their responsibility to inform and to question the government, and that kind of includes social media. All these things are not these guardrails are not doing what they're supposed to do because the people they're not doing it right. Like the reason why we have freedom of the press, the 100% reason why we have freedom of the press was because they wanted to make cartoons making fun of King George. That's why we have freedom of the press, right? It's literally so the press can make fun of government. That is why we have it. And or we can ridicule government. We can
yeah.
speak against the government. And the media is not doing that way in an honest, fair and unbiased way. They're not doing that.
Well, I guess I would turn it back on you on the idea that let's assume they were doing it the
Okay?
way, the MSNBC and I mean Fox is kind of a different boat. That's more complicated. But let's say like the NBC, they're doing the news the way, we think of when we think about the fourth estate. Would that change the mindset of voters? I mean, I feel like when it comes to Trump, I think people had enough information. I think the media gave America enough information. Maybe they didn't do well enough to talk about the stakes, but I feel like most people understood the stakes and they still voted for him, So I don't think the media did a great job. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, at a certain point, don't we have to just blame the voters for all this? I mean, instead of just, blaming all these other institutions, I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
Well, and I do want to tie it back into Hegseth, but propaganda is real.
Yes, absolutely.
So you know, do you blame someone who's brainwashed, or do you blame the brainwasher, the hypnotist? Do you blame me because I'm hypnotized, or do you blame the hypnotist?
Good
Yeah,
question.
everyone's adults, right? But propaganda is real. So as stupid as we think these people are, or whatever, propaganda worked. People were and are brainwashed to believe certain things. So I do blame, and we all need to blame ourselves and the American people. Um, but at the same time, you know, millions, if not billions of dollars were spent to influence people's beliefs,
Sure.
ideas, concepts, and that worked, right? I mean, if propaganda doesn't work or whatever, then there's no real reason that there should even be modern psychology. Like people shouldn't even have psychiatrists or psychologists because it does work. So yeah, Americans are stupid, but propaganda is real.
Yeah, and
So
I'm sure there's millions of people who watch Fox and other things that are like, oh, Pete Hegseth is a great guy. This is a smear campaign. I mean, he made some past mistakes, but he was vague about it. Like, I'm sure there's millions of people that think he's a good person. He's a combat vet. He's a great guy. So like, it's hard to break through that if you're like you said, billions of dollars are being invested in fighting against it. But I still think there are outlets where people can get basic information, but they don't want to have their views countered or their biases countered.
sure,
Like the idea of we talked about this before, like tariffs. Like it would take 5 minutes on your phone to figure out what tariffs is and how it works and how it might counter what you think tariffs are. But people didn't do it because they don't even
yeah,
want to know.
yeah.
They don't want to
Well,
know.
well,
So
no one wants to be
uh,
told you were suckered.
that's the key. I do think that's the key.
You know, um, and I think what the Democrats are doing right now is trying their damnedest to say, look, and I don't know how people watching, and I don't know what the coverage is like on Fox News, but trying their damnedest to get these sound bites out
Yeah.
of how bad this person is. But I don't really know who else they would put um, in that position. This is kind of one of the positions, and they're probably all that way, but this is really a position where this person needs a very undying loyalty to the United States Constitution, right? And
Yeah.
not to um not to political, not to the president, but to the Constitution. You know, the president has uh, really strong wartime powers. Now, obviously, the president cannot say we're going to war, but that's really only semantics because the president can, uh, you know, call troops out and do these things. Them not technically declaring war is, I don't really think the founders wanted it this way, but the president can basically declare war,
Yeah.
and
Or police.
Constitution
He
even
could declare a
can't.
police action. He could send troops into a war zone. I mean,
Yeah,
it's been done plenty of times
yeah,
without the
yeah,
declaration
yeah,
of
yeah,
war. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the counter argument he'd argue, and I'm sure a lot of his fans, he's like, hey, he was in Iraq. I think he was in Afghanistan. Like he
Mhm.
put his life on the line for this country,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he could turn around to people and be like, hey, what did you do? You know, I've shown my medal for America. I mean, that's different than defending the Constitution, but I mean, he could play the patriotism card and kind of played it.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I think about it this way, right? Just as a firefighter, which has some similarities to the military. I and just throughout my career, even when I was brand new, even though I had fought fire, I wasn't when I was new, I wasn't qualified to to teach other people how to fight fire, nor was I qualified to have people follow me into burning
Of
buildings,
course. Yeah.
right? Obviously, with time and experience and then education, and now that I passed different things, and now I have the rank of captain. Yeah, now I am qualified to actually teach other people how to do the craft, and I am qualified to lead other individuals into very dangerous positions or places. But I'm still not qualified to, let's say, you know, the budget of the budget of the fire department, running that budget, even if it was just logistics, where we're talking about buildings, the fire stations, and the
Trucks.
fire and the trucks,
Yeah.
and the tools. I can tell you the tools we need on a truck, but that's different than, hey, let me spec the truck, let me find the bids and all that. That's still different. And that's a higher level than I am. I haven't been trained up to that level. I don't have the education up to that level. It can come in time, but it would be folly to put a new person as the head of a fire company, just like it'd be folly to put a captain, which I am, as the head of the department. And my department, or any fire department, is infinitely times smaller than the United States military, you know. And I have 20 years of experience, and I wouldn't say that I would be qualified to run a department that's the size of the department I'm even in.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, that's the qualification that goes without saying. But I do also wonder if let's say he gets confirmed, which I think it's likely he is, and a disaster doesn't happen, will people look back and say, well, what was the big deal? Like, why are they talking about it? Like, I guess the
Yeah,
argument I'm making is it only is going to be a problem if something bad happens, and
yeah.
something
I mean,
bad may not happen.
typically, war in America are kind of things. So it's actually it'd be difficult for it to not. But then you also have this talk, and Hegseth would not say, "Hey, I will." I wish they would have asked it a little more pointedly. Will you invade one of our allies? They didn't actually say that. I wish they would have just said that specifically. They
Mhm.
they did say Denmark. They said Denmark. They said Greenland. And he wouldn't deny that he would. But what is on the horizon, what they are claiming could possibly be on the horizon, is military intervention to allies, and that has not happened. And I'm trying to think of a scenario where America has invaded an ally. um I don't really know of one.
Yeah,
Maybe.
because it doesn't make any sense. So like
No.
it's like
I mean, what's the point of allies?
yeah, like I don't even understand like what would be the comparison? Like if he invaded Greenland or like that's why I think he's trolling because
The
it makes so
only
little
comparison
sense.
you could say that America has done would be like intervention, like Black Ops intervention in like South America,
Of course,
things like that, where you're like,
Haiti,
hey, yeah, Haiti,
yeah,
right? But an actual invasion, I don't believe we've ever done that, and I could be wrong, but I don't believe we've done that. But he's not ruling out. Trump's not ruling out military invasions to Greenland or to Panama. Um, and I don't know if he said Canada to a military invasion, but that would just be absolutely insane. I did see on Russian, I think it was a Russian clip I saw, and the Russians are now talking. I think it was yeah, well, I know it's Russians. The Russians were saying that they sold Alaska to America, and
back in the day.
America, yeah, and they should just get that back, just like if we're gonna get Panama back. And it's like I actually can't argue that.
Well, yeah, that's why it's so absurd. Like any like you know how many countries have claims to other pieces of lands throughout history? I mean, like it's absurd. It's absurd. So I guess you're saying like if that's the path we're going on, a defense secretary is
It's
going to
extremely important.
is extremely important. But
Yeah.
maybe it is connected because maybe you do need a defense secretary who doesn't care about the Constitution, just going to do what Trump says, and that's the plan. I mean, maybe we're just not even looking at this big picture enough. You know, we're talking about unqualified, but they just want
Right.
someone
So
who's going to
maybe
do what he
maybe
says.
that is,
Yeah,
maybe you're right. To your point, maybe that's the plan. I need someone that's not that doesn't know the Constitution. Like he was asked a question about uh, a part of the war which I didn't know the answer to, but I'm not running for Secretary of Defense, so it doesn't matter that I don't know it. But like
yeah.
maybe that's the whole point. If you want to do these things that are against international law, like in invade NATO allies, you'll probably need someone in the Department of Defense that is okay with invading a NATO ally.
America going heel is wild. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is. Oh, so let's close this out. What are the chances he's gonna get confirmed? Because I think it's like 95% at this point. I mean, unless something else comes out.
Yeah, this is almost like the Price is Right. Well, it's 94, like
Yeah,
you know, I haven't heard this is why I know it's actually probably 100 because I haven't heard any Republicans speak out against him. So
yeah,
if no Republicans are speaking out against him, then I guess that's it.
yeah. Because I think Joni Ernst, which is the Republican senator from Iowa, she's military. I think she was a victim of sexual assault. So I heard in private she asked some tough questions, but in public she really didn't. I think she got a concession that he'll appoint someone to be in charge of the sexual assault. So
That would be it. Yeah, I heard.
he's removed from that, since he's kind of implicated, and I think she's gonna vote to confirm him. And if she does, I don't think a lot of these white Republican men are gonna say, "Well, I'm not," you know. So if
Yeah,
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 I would say 95%. I mean, something could come out that's just like, oh, damn, but right now, I wouldn't bet against it.
yeah. No, I wouldn't bet against it either. You're probably right. I think that's kind of why the confirmation was so kind of like pounding on him, especially from Tim Kaine, because they just want to make sure everyone knows, hey, we said how crazy this is, and y'all did it anyway. Um, but yeah, I guess there is really no way. But this is dangerous. This is not one of again to kind of reiterate, but this is all the secretary positions, all the cabinet positions are important, but Secretary of Defense,
It's
this
big.
is kind of one of the really, really important ones. Not only because it has America's defense in the name, but the amount of individuals and the budget they have. Because we already think that the military overspends. Um, but I don't think most Americans think that there's actually a lot of corruption in our U.S. military. We think that there's a lot of spending, but I don't think most of us think that generals are siphoning money.
No,
We don't, which if you go throughout the world, right, you think of, warlords, they're definitely taking funds and money from and plunder. But typically in America, we don't look at our generals as people that are taking money from the taxpayers or from the military. So what if we had, and this is I just kind of thought of this, what if we had a military? What if the U.S. military had a corrupt military? Right?
oh man,
We think of overspending, but we don't think of corruption in the military. What if our military was corrupt?
it would be the biggest corruption in history. I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean,
Yeah,
now I don't think that means there's no corruption in.
I agree. Because saying it out loud, it's like, well, obviously there has to be,
It's just a different
right?
type. It's not like a general making money. It's more like a general getting put onto some board after he retires for 6 million a
Right.
year. So it's more of a institutionalized corruption, but it isn't like I sold these fake tires for
Yeah,
$50,000 a tire like it is in
I don't
Russia.
think that's happening. And I'm not saying that it doesn't, right? Because even that thing, I'm not saying that it doesn't, but we know we do know. But Americans inherently trust our military, and we trust that it's one of the departments that is not corrupt, right? You
Yes.
know. So, but what if we just said no? The military is corrupt, right? What if this was Zaire when that was a country, right? Where we're like, no, the military is corrupt. What if this was the Philippines, where you're like, yeah, or Venezuela, the military is corrupt. America hasn't had that problem.
Well, and I'm gonna go back to this again. I don't know if the American people care about corruption anymore. I hate to say that, but like Trump is one of the most corrupt people in American history. Like, and we just made him president again. So, do we really care about corruption? I mean, maybe 48% of people care about corruption, but that ain't enough, brother. So,
No, it's
if
not.
if Trump wants to give out fat contracts to people that are going to do his bidding, and and Hegseth is going to agree with it. They got Fox News defended. They got I think they got a whole media institution. They got political institution. Like, I don't. If that's the plan, I think they're going to get away with it. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
On that cheery note. Yeah.
that's rough.
So
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, at least we, like you said, the Democrats hit him pretty hard. So maybe that will be down to the benefit politically down the road. We'll see. Just not his head. Like, I don't know about that.
I know.
Uh anyways, Chaz, talk to you soon, brother.
All right, talk to you later.